This is Chapter 19 of Following the Equator. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Following the Equator by Mark Twain, Chapter 19. The Botanical Gardens, Contributions from All Countries, the Zoological Gardens of Adelaide, the Laughing Jackass, the Dingo, a misnamed province, telegraphing from Melbourne to San Francisco, a mania for holidays, the temperature, the death rate, celebration of the reading of the Proclamation of 1836, some old settlers at the commemoration, their staying powers, the intelligence of the aboriginal, the antiquity of the boomerang. Pity is for the living, envy is for the dead. Pudd'nhead Wilson's New Calendar. The successor of the sheet-iron hamlet of the mangrove marshes has that other Australian specialty, the Botanical Gardens. We cannot have these paradises. The best we could do would be to cover a vast acreage under glass and apply steam heat. But it would be inadequate. The lacks would still be so great. The confined sense, the sense of suffocation, the atmospheric dimness, the sweaty heat, these would all be there in place of the Australian openness to the sky, the sunshine and the breeze. Whatever will grow under glass with us will flourish rampantly out of doors in Australia. The greatest heat in Victoria that there is an authoritative record of was at Sandhurst in January 1862. The thermometer then registered 117 degrees in the shade. In January 1880, the heat at Adelaide, South Australia, was 172 degrees in the sun. When the white man came, the continent was nearly as poor, in variety of vegetation, as the desert of Sahara. Now it has everything that grows on the earth. In fact, not Australia only, but all Australasia has levied tribute upon the flora of the rest of the world, and wherever one goes the results appear, in gardens private and public, in the woodsy walls of the highways, and in even the forests. If you see a curious or beautiful tree or bush or flower and ask about it, the people, answering, usually name a foreign country as the place of its origin: India, Africa, Japan, China, England, America, Java, Sumatra, New Guinea, Polynesia, and so on. In the Zoological Gardens of Adelaide I saw the only laughing jackass that ever showed any disposition to be courteous to me. This one opened his head wide and laughed like a demon, or like a maniac who was consumed with humorous scorn over a cheap and degraded pun. It was a very human laugh. If he had been out of sight I could have believed that the laughter came from a man. It is an odd-looking bird, with a head and beak that are much too large for its body. In time man will exterminate the rest of the wild creatures of Australia, but this one will probably survive, for man is his friend and lets him alone. Man always has a good reason for his charities towards wild things, human or animal, when he has any. In this case the bird is spared because he kills snakes. If L.J. will take my advice, he will not kill all of them. In that garden I also saw the wild Australian dog, the dingo. He was a beautiful creature, shapely, graceful, a little wolfish in some of his aspects, but with a most friendly eye and sociable disposition. The dingo is not an importation. He was present in great force when the whites first came to the continent. It may be that he is the oldest dog in the universe. His origin, his descent, the place where his ancestors first appeared, are as unknown and as untraceable as are the camels. He is the most precious dog in the world, for he does not bark. But in an evil hour he got to raiding the sheep-runs to appease his hunger, and that sealed his doom. He is hunted now, just as if he were a wolf. He has been sentenced to extermination, and the sentence will be carried out. This is all right and not objectionable. The world was made for man, the white man. South Australia is confusingly named. All of the colonies have a southern exposure except one, Queensland. Properly speaking, South Australia is Middle Australia. It extends straight up through the center of the continent like the middle board in a center table. It is 2,000 miles high, from south to north, and about a third as wide. A wee little spot down in its southeastern corner contains 8 or 9 tenths of its population. The other 1 or 2 tenths are elsewhere, as they could be in the United States with all the country between Denver and Chicago, and Canada and the Gulf of Mexico to scatter over. There is plenty of room. A telegraph line stretches straight up north through that 2,000 miles of wilderness and desert from Adelaide to Port Darwin on the edge of the upper ocean. South Australia built the line, and did it in 1871, too, when her population numbered only 185,000. It was a great work, for there were no roads, no paths. 1,300 miles of the route had been traversed but once before by white men. Provisions, wire, and poles had to be carried over immense stretches of desert. Wells had to be dug along the route to supply the men and cattle with water. A cable had been previously laid from Port Darwin to Java, and thence to India, and there was telegraphic communication with England from India. And so, if Adelaide could make connection with Port Darwin, it meant connection with the whole world. The enterprise succeeded. One could watch the London markets daily now. The profit to the wool growers of Australia was instant and enormous. A telegram from Melbourne to San Francisco covers approximately 20,000 miles, the equivalent of 5/6 of the way around the globe. It has to halt along the way a good many times and be repeated. Still, but little time is lost. These halts and the distances between them are here tabulated. From Round the Empire, George R. Parkin, all but the last 2. Melbourne to Mount Gambier, 300 miles. Mount Gambier to Adelaide, 270. Adelaide to Port Augusta, 200. Port Augusta to Alice Springs, 1,036. Alice Springs to Port Darwin, 898. Port Darwin to Banjawangi, 1,150. Banjawangi to Batavia, 480. Batavia to Singapore, 553. Singapore to Penang, 399. Penang to Madras, 1,280. Madras to Bombay, 650. Bombay to Aden, 1,662. Aden to Suez, 1,346. Suez to Alexandria, 224. Alexandria to Malta, 828. Malta to Gibraltar, 1,008. Gibraltar to Falmouth, 1,061. Falmouth to London, 350. London to New York, 2,500. New York to San Francisco, 3,500. I was in Adelaide again, some months later, and saw the multitudes gather in the neighboring city of Glenelg to commemorate the reading of the proclamation, in 1836, which founded the province. If I have at any time called it a colony, I withdraw the discourtesy. It is not a colony. It is a province, and officially so. Moreover, it is the only one so named in Australasia. There was great enthusiasm. It was the province's national holiday, its 4th of July, so to speak. It is the preeminent holiday, and that is saying much in a country where they seem to have a most un-English mania for holidays. Mainly they are working men's holidays, for in South Australia the working man is sovereign. His vote is the desire of the politician. Indeed, it is the very breath of the politician's being. The Parliament exists to deliver the will of the working man, and the government exists to execute it. The working man is a great power everywhere in Australia, but South Australia is his paradise. He has had a hard time in this world and has earned a paradise. I am glad he has found it. The holidays there are frequent enough to be bewildering to the stranger. I tried to get the hang of the system, but was not able to do it. You have seen that the province is tolerant, religious-wise. It is so politically also. One of the speakers at the commemoration banquet, the Minister of Public Works, was an American, born and reared in New England. There is nothing narrow about the province, politically, or in any other way that I know of. 64 religions and a Yankee cabinet minister. No amount of horse racing can damn this community. The mean temperature of the province is 62 degrees. The death rate is 13 in the 1,000, about half what it is in the city of New York, I should think, and New York is a healthy city.